And we are live. So, da da da. All right, welcome everyone to a Facebook Live. We're hanging out with Ken Ramirez. He's such an amazing presenter. Last year blew everybody's minds. I'm so excited for it. Karen Pryor is who he's also with. They're one of our bronze sponsors. The topic he's talking about, the event, is talking about handling mistakes positively, and this is part of our 2019 CHATTcon event in Seattle, July 19th through 21st. And it is streamed as well. We'll be also talking about a day at the ranch and another discount opportunity at the end of this. But first, a fun interview. How you doing, Ken?
Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
It's going so great. You literally shook everybody up, and everyone was like, "Holy cow!" The possibilities of our science last year. So I'm really excited to jump into what you've been up to this year and all that. Can we start with though? How'd you get into this line of work? What's the story?
That's an interesting question because it was not. I did not. When I meet so many young people that go to college saying, "I want to be an animal trainer. I want to do this kind of work," and that's not how it started with me. I when I was in high school though, I did volunteer at the Institute for the Blind, where they train guide dogs for the visually impaired. And there's no question that I had a real fascination with that. In fact, it was the idea of intelligent disobedience, the fact that a guide dog is taught that it should follow instructions from its handler accurately 95% of the time, but then 5% of the time there might be situations that present themselves in which the handler says do X and the dog has to say no, I'm not doing that because it's risky, it's dangerous due to low hanging tree branch or to an obstacle in front of the handler, etc. And I think that's where I first sort of was so fascinated with what dogs could learn. And I do remember that at that point, I was thinking about what I was going to do with my life. I was thinking about where I was going to go to college. I was thinking about things like that. And I remember thinking, gosh, what a cool job. Play with dogs all day long, but do it with this noble purpose in mind of training them to help the blind. And so
Yeah.
I thought to myself I might become a guide dog trainer. I thought that would be my goal. But then, as is often the case when you're young and thinking about school and lots of other things distracting you, my life took me in lots of different directions, and I ended up studying a variety of different things in college. And it was actually not until my senior year in college that I saw an opportunity to just get a summer job at a marine life park. And the summer job was in the education department, helping to teach classes to young people. And I thought, well, I could probably do that. And I didn't think much of it. But when I got there, it was a park that had a variety of animals. It had birds, it had reptiles, it had marine mammals. And it turned out that so many of the things I had experienced in the dog training world when I was in high school and things that I'd learned about in college when it came to behavior were being employed in the training of those animals. And so at the end of that summer, I think I must have shown a real interest, and I know I hung out with the trainers a lot. The curator asked me if I was interested in an entry-level position, and I thought to myself, well, I don't know if that's the kind of job I want long term, but sounds like a fun
Mm-hmm.
thing for me to learn about. And so I took that job, and it sort of sucked me into this world of animal behavior with exotic animals in a variety of different situations. And it was from there that my growth and learning about how to apply the science of behavior in many different applications and many different settings happened for me. And I was just lucky to be able to work at an organization that had many different species. So I was working with marine mammals, and I was working with birds, and I was working with primates, and I was working with big cats. And so I quickly began to see the connectivity between each of the different species. And so many years later, it came full circle, and I ended up coming back into the dog training world as well. And now I do consulting work with a variety of guide dog organizations. And so that early start with guide dogs, I'm back doing that again as a consultant. And so it's been kind of an amazing journey, but it's taken 40 years to get there. But
Yeah.
I've been working at it for a long time.
That's cool, man. We were talking yesterday in another live about just the dedication and time it takes to be able to like work yourself into really cool roles like this. We have a couple cool people here. We've got some people from Children's Zoo. They said they got a group of keepers that are watching. Hello to Kathy. Hello to the other 15 or so that are streaming right now. Okay, a few different areas I want to go today. First of all, what's new since last year? Is there any new thoughts, ideas, experiences?
Well, there's a month doesn't go by without something new coming into my field of vision or new things that I'm involved in. And so, what's new since last year? I don't even know where to begin. I have been for the past several years moved to the Washington State area, and I'm in the Seattle area where I run what we call the Karen Pryor National Training Center. It's called The Ranch, and it's a location where I'm able to give full 1-week courses on animal behavior and training and give people an opportunity to work with some of our animals at the ranch. So that's sort of an ongoing thing that I've been doing now for the last couple of years.
So
But
last night, real quick on Twitter, I saw one of the donkeys rolling around the dirt. Was that up there?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was there. One of the things that we do is we'll bring our donkeys into the inside of the barn where the dirt is soft and it's always dry, and the animals love rolling in it. It's letting them into the barn is like an automatic cue to go roll in the dirt. I mean, they just do it all the time, and they really really love it. So I happened to catch one of our donkeys on video, and so I posted that last night on Instagram and on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. How many animals are up there now at the
We
ranch?
have 35 animals here at the ranch. We have miniature donkeys, we have goats, we have alpacas, and we have dogs. And those animals are learning partners for a lot of the students that take courses at the ranch. They're able to work with those animals on a every day during our 1-week courses, and we actually have 3 completely different courses that we offer here at the ranch, all designed for different experience levels and different types of interest.
Nice.
But that's just one of the many things I'm involved with. I still do a lot of consulting, and so a big part of my consulting job is I travel around the world and really try to help bring positive reinforcement training into arenas where it might not be common. Many of the working dog communities that I work in are really wanting to move to using more positive reinforcement, like law enforcement, guide dog work, service dog work. But many of those types of disciplines have been using traditional approaches to training. They use positive reinforcement, but they also use punishment, and they're looking for effective ways of moving the bar and changing that. So that's something that I spend a lot of time doing. And then, of course, my full-time role is as executive VP and chief training officer for Karen Pryor Clicker Training. The ranch is a part of that job, but I also am responsible for the vision and educational mission of Karen Pryor Clicker Training, and that includes our Karen Pryor Academy, where we certify professional dog trainers. Also through Karen Pryor Academy, we offer a variety of online courses. And then we also have our Clicker Expos, which are 3 times a year, these educational conferences where we bring some of the great minds of positive reinforcement training together and offer these 3-day events for people to come and learn about training. So I'm kind of responsible for organizing and developing that kind of programming for Karen Pryor Clicker Training. And so it's something that I really enjoy. I've always been passionate about sharing my knowledge about training and helping people become better trainers. And at Karen Pryor Clicker Training, that is our goal. In fact, one of our mottos is train better. And our hope is that we can help people learn to use positive reinforcement tools in the most productive way possible to help our clients, to help our animals. It's just been a big part of my mission even before I joined Karen Pryor Clicker Training. So I'm always involved in lots of different things.
Nice. Yeah, no kidding. So a quick call to everybody out there. If you have any comments or questions for Ken, please leave them in the comments down below. We'll start queuing those up. Joan is helping out. So this year at the event, you have a piece that you're going to be talking about here on handling mistakes positively. Um, where are you thinking of going with this?
Well, it's interesting because I regularly at the ranch I do a couple of different topics that I teach a lot about, and what I'm going to do is actually combine two different popular topics of mine and merge them into one presentation for this event. I do fairly regularly. I talk about handling animal mistakes positively, meaning that you know it's not hard for people to see how to use positive reinforcement when it comes to training new behavior, but where in roadblock or a challenge sometimes is, yeah, okay, use the reinforcement when my dog does something I want him to do. But what do I do when my dog makes a mistake? How do I handle that? I mean, the science tells us that to decrease behavior, we have to punish. So, how in the world can I use positive reinforcement to deal with a mistake? And so, that is something I've often dealt with in that particular subject that I talk about a lot, handling animal mistakes positively. But I took the word animal out of the title for this event because I'm combining it with a talk that I do on using positive reinforcement with people, and it's a regular. I do actually full weekend seminars for organizations who want to understand how better to use positive reinforcement in the workplace and how to apply positive reinforcement with people, and whether it's your client, your children, your students, or your boss, your coach, your parents, your spouse. The reality is we can use positive reinforcement in lots of different ways. But again, the challenge that people come across is, oh, I have no trouble being nice and saying thank you and complimenting people when they do something well. But what do I do when somebody screws up? What do I do when my child misbehaves? What do I do when my client won't follow my instructions? How do I handle these kinds of things in the human world? And what I find is as I talk about these topics with handling people, the same techniques that we use with animals also applies to people. The difference only lies in the fact that we have to communicate with people through language, and actually that presents obstacles for us because we are so good, those of us that are animal trainers are so good at watching animal behavior and reacting to animal behavior by adapting the environment and adding reinforcers in there, but we don't have to talk to our animals, or we talk to them but they don't hear us and understand us, and so we have to use the environment and other things that we do to communicate adequately to our animals. When it comes to people, we rely on verbal communication, and often we as animal trainers aren't well trained at using our verbal communication skills to be able to convey a message to people. But when you boil it down to the way reinforcement and punishment works, when you really boil down the into the smallest units of behavior of how antecedents trigger behavior and behavior following behavior are some kind of consequence. And when you look at that in the context of the way we interact with people, the reality is if we can arrange the environment properly, if we can redirect people when they make mistakes, those same tools that we use with animals just have to be translated to some kind of verbal type of communication that helps us address a mistake or an error with a colleague, a client, and help redirect them toward a more uh, productive and positive response. And so, what I hope to do at the conference this year is bring those two topics together. Now, they're as standalone topics, they are 2 and 3 hour topics all by
Yeah,
themselves. Uh, I think I have 50 minutes at the conference to try
yeah,
to bring them together. So I'm going to focus first on a couple of common um, ways of dealing with mistakes. I'll talk a little bit about, is saying no or wrong, is that in and of itself a punisher? And look at some of the research behind that and look at how it affects animals and people. And then I'll look at things like timeouts. Timeouts are something that are common in the animal training world and they're common in the teaching
extremely,
world
yeah.
as well. And consequently, I'll show what some of the fallouts are of using no and using wrong and using timeouts. And then I'll bridge to, well, what is a more preferred approach? And I think what I'll ultimately focus on is the use of redirection tools, because ultimately redirection is the best way to successfully accomplish changing an animal's course or a person's course of action while still being able to use positive reinforcement, because you're giving the animal an alternative. You're giving the child, the client, the spouse, whoever, an alternative response that will earn reinforcement. And it's learning how to set that environment up and learning how to anticipate and be prepared for that so that it flows easily out of us. I think it's hard for us because we grow up in a society in which our parents, our coaches, our teachers always said, no, stop, don't, quit. And so it comes out of us really easily, and we find ourselves falling into that trap. And I hope to guide people and show people how to avoid that trap and how to use redirection appropriately for their pets or for the people in their lives. That's my hope, and that's my plan.
Nice. I'm sure you will deliver if last year and the other things that I've seen of yours are any indication. I'm super excited. The alternative there, like that idea of providing this alternative response is so like core and crucial, but I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's a pretty simple idea, but it's hard to line up sometimes of like getting it just right.
It absolutely is. In fact, one of the challenges that I find often is I see a lot of animal trainers who will go in and work with a client and say, well, what would you like to see instead? And it's not a question that the general public has ever thought of before. And so consequently, we often as trainers, as behaviorists, have to come in with good ideas of showing people how to set that up and how to make that happen, because it doesn't come naturally, and it isn't usually the way people think. When you ask the question of a dog client, for example, that says, I want my dog to quit jumping on me. And if you ask the question, what would you like to see instead? The normal response is, well, I'd like to see them quit jumping. And they don't understand how to frame it in the way of a more desirable behavior. And so redirection takes practice, and it takes understanding of how that works. And it's even more complicated when it comes to redirecting people. Because as soon as you start the redirection process, there is an intelligent person quickly realizes that what you're saying is what they just did wasn't what you were looking for.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference in telling somebody, you idiot, that's not what I told you to do, as opposed to saying, hey, maybe I didn't explain that to you properly. Let me show you how I'd like you to do that next time and how it will help you be more successful. There are ways to set it up so that the person doesn't feel bad, but yet you're still giving them good instructions and good direction that helps them achieve your goal. And so, but it's a tricky thing to set up, and it takes a lot of practice. And that's why I think that these two seminars that I generally give to the public and to my students here at the ranch, I think that's why they're some of my more popular topics, because while we understand them, we don't always understand how to implement them and how to do them.
Yeah, for sure. We had a comment here from Lisa. She said 3 of the local police agencies are switching from traditional methods to positive reinforcement based and clicker fundamentals. I believe she's up in Seattle. The other one, so I have another question here to queue up. So Joan's asking me to pass along, how many donkeys do you have? And do you let your dogs on the furniture?
Good question. So those are two separate questions. So first, as far as the number of donkeys we have here at the ranch, we have 13 donkeys right now here at the ranch. As far as the questions about letting dogs on the furniture, it depends on the dog. Different dogs have different rules. There are some of my smaller dogs in the past that I have been perfectly comfortable with allowing them up on the furniture, while often for some of the larger dogs, I would rather them not be on the furniture because they take up the entire couch, would take up the entire seating area. And my solution for that is I simply provide my big dogs nice, comfortable beds next to the couch that are actually more soft, more comfortable, and more desirable place to be than the couch. And actually, I have absolutely no trouble getting my big dogs, not to be on the couch, because we provide them with an adequate substitute. We redirect them to a better location.
Beautiful, man. So Joan, we'll see if there's any last questions at all. Ken, Any like tips or resources for people to look into to kind of prepare for your presentation?
I don't know that there's any resources. I mean, during the actual presentation, I will be directing people toward good resources. I mean, when it comes to the use of redirection, there are so many excellent scientific references that I can point people toward to understanding redirection. But when it comes to using it with people, I often do have to point people in a couple of interesting directions. And I find myself looking up at my library. I have
Yeah.
my library right up here, and I'm looking at the books that I usually recommend. One of them that I often recommend is sort of a surprise to people. There is a small little book called Whale Done. Whale Done is written by Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager, and he paired up with trainers from
Ah,
SeaWorld to talk about it was meant as an allegory for business professionals to learn how to use positive reinforcement in the business environment. And the reason I often recommend that book, especially to animal trainers, because if you're an animal trainer and you read Whale Done, you will see all of these techniques that you're very familiar with, but being translated into a human world and seeing how to use these things with humans. And so for animal trainers, it is a wonderful way to connect what we do every day to using it in the real world. Then another book that I was turned on to by Dr. Susan Friedman was a book called Crucial Conversations. I like to recommend that book because it's one thing to work with people who are use positive reinforcement with people or people who agree with you. But what Crucial Conversations is about is how to keep the door open and keep that dialogue going with someone who disagrees with you, someone who's not on the same page as you, someone who is diametrically opposed to something that you're trying to suggest and they're against it. And what's nice about that book is it really takes you through how to use these good tools, but in really difficult situations, because that's where people run into trouble. People run into trouble with the use of positive reinforcement when they're dealing with someone they don't like, when they're dealing with somebody who opposes them, when they're dealing with somebody who's arguing with them. And Crucial Conversations is this wonderful book that shows you how to take the upper road, how to keep the door open, how to manage the conversation so that you can move toward a productive resolution, but not walk away angry at your colleague or at whoever it is that you're having difficulty with.
yeah, she
So
mentioned
that,
that on our live stream last week as one
oh,
of
did
the,
she? Yeah,
yeah.
I've been teaching how to use positive reinforcement with people for a long time, and that book has just been such an excellent addition to the resources that I suggest to people, because it deals with the really difficult, more complicated um, challenges that we face. And that's where most of us run into trouble. We don't have too much trouble figuring out how to reinforce people that do something well. What we have trouble with is working with people who we don't get along with, working with people who disagree with us. And
Yeah,
that's why that's a good book.
I read that a few years ago as part of like a work community. Like there's a group of us that were all reading different things when it came to
Uh-huh.
leadership books, and that was one of those. Fantastic. So tell us a little bit, real quick, about the day at the ranch. So there's a few slots
Oh,
left.
yes, I don't think there's too many slots left, but yes, one of the things that we did last year and it was very popular is we set up a day at the ranch connected to the conference so that people who are coming out to the Seattle area maybe haven't had a chance to take one of our 1 week courses. The day at the ranch is an opportunity to get a taste of what those courses might be like. And in this year, we're doing a day at the ranch on the Friday right before the conference starts. And so if people want to come in a day early and sign up for that experience, they make their way out here to the ranch. We start the day with a 90-minute seminar that is taken from one of the 1 week courses that we do. We then go out and meet some animals and give people a chance to see what training one of those animals might be like. We have lunch. We come back and do another seminar from a different 1 week course. And so it really is like a taste of what a ranch course would be like. But it's not really a sales job. I mean, it's not like we're here to sell you a course. We're actually going to do a full 90-minute lecture from one of the courses, another 90-minute lecture from another course. We'll take people out to actually meet the animals and do a training session with the animals. So it's kind of like a sampler of ranch type experiences, but you get to do it in a day, and it gives people that opportunity to just add on to their experience, particularly for those that are not from the Seattle Tacoma area that might be coming up for the conference. Joining us the day before is something they might want to consider. But like you said, we are almost sold out. We sold out last year, and the last I looked, we had like 3 or 4 places left. So I don't know what the status is today, but I certainly expect it to sell out soon.
Everyone absolutely ranted and raved about that. I was glad to be able to sit in and kind of watch in the back as a participant for a little bit, or as an observer. The conference for everybody real quick, July 19th through 21st. So the 19th we'll have some evening events, fun sort of things. 20th, 21st of the conference. That is when Ken will be speaking. Again, here's his topic, and a big shout out to the sponsors, both Terra Nova as well as Karen Pryor. I think that's it. Any closing words of wisdom or anything you want to send people out with?
I don't know if I have any specific words of wisdom other than I always encourage people to think about how you can make the lives of your animals better and how you can make the lives of the people in your life better. And part of that is by being a positive role model for the people around you, providing positive experiences, and thinking about how to use positive reinforcement. The way to make positive reinforcement a part of your everyday life is to actually think about it every day and to actually make a conscious effort, because then it can become a natural part of what you do every day. How's that for closing?
I love it. Yeah, that was perfect. You nailed that. All right, so everyone viewing, thank you so much. Ken, you can stay on, but I will end the live stream. So appreciate y'all's time. Like, share, if you don't mind, helping us break through these algorithms that our social media would be nice and useful. So if it's relevant to your community, you don't mind sharing, please do. And we will be following the comments. Ken, again, thank you so much. We got a lot of little hearts coming in here.